As we prepare to sail to Cuba, I am just learning about the island's history. And the more I learn, the more I consider the history of my own country and my experience growing up where I did. Come with us as we learn more about Cuba. I just want to say from the get-go that I know international law is ineffective, but the law is clear. No civilian may be punished for a crime that he or she did not commit. Cuba used to have a dictator who allowed corruption to run rampant, who suspended elections, and who carried out torture and public executions. When Fulgencio Batista was driven out of the country on January 1st, 1959, really wealthy Cubans who also faced imprisonment and execution for their possible crimes also fled the island. The immediate policies that Fidel Castro implemented after Batista and the really wealthy landowners fled included seizing land held by American companies and distributing the land to poor farmers, as well as famously cooperating with the Soviet Union to bring weapons to the island, and he did all this while delaying elections, fearing covert operations by the CIA. Now, I'm from Canada, where my own government cooperated with a larger nuclear superpower to operate a secretive nuclear weapons program. Nuclear warheads were placed on Canadian soil. What I'm trying to say is, as a Canadian civilian, I would really not like it if I was punished for the actions of my government cooperating with a larger nuclear superpower, the only country who has used nuclear weapons on civilians, by the way. Now, the US government really didn't like Fidel Castro because his style of governance meant that there would be no more American capital investment on the island. For example, sugarcane production was the main industry at the time, and nationalizing that industry meant that only Cuban people living on the island would be able to possess the farms and the factories to process sugar. The US began officially restricting trade to the island in 1962. This meant that Cuba was forcibly restricted from buying and selling goods with other countries. With no more trade and very few goods going in and out, this meant that decades of economic instability followed. Hundreds of thousands of Cubans suffering from this economic decline started leaving the island in waves of mass immigration. As the standard of living went down, more and more people wanted to voice their frustration. The government tightened its grip on the population with laws that restricted freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom of movement. Now, it's interesting to me as you look throughout history, this happens again and again when resources are dwindling and when the workforce is collapsing. This always goes hand in hand with authoritarianism. Anyways, the United Nations and more countries around the world began to recognize officially the deadly impact of this embargo in 1992. Since the very beginning of this embargo, many of the world's leaders and prominent figures recognized the obvious consequences of collectively punishing an entire population for the sometimes very real and the sometimes only perceived crimes of its leaders. None of us, no one in their own countries, would want to be collectively punished for the crimes and the mistakes of our own leaders. Thanks for coming with us down this little path of history. Stay tuned for more. You can help us to collect donations for our sail to Cuba.